the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, and the second has to do with that World's Fair that I mentioned. But let's start with, does everyone know that we had a really devastating fire that happened here? Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing some nods, that's good. In case you didn't know, that's alright, because we're about to go into it, but I want to really clear some things up. So basically, the starting location of this fire is about 3 blocks over to our right. Over there at the time, there was a small home and a small barn in the backyard. Living inside the home, 2 Irish Catholic immigrants, Catherine and Patrick O'Leary. Okay, so that is where the facts end, and then the rumors and urban legends take over. Because the story goes that Catherine was in her barn one night, milking her cow. The cow kicks over a kerosene lantern. The lantern sparks the barn on fire. The fire spreads throughout Chicago and burns it to the ground. And whose fault was it? Catherine O'Leary's fault. That's not true. Now, as far as we know, Catherine was not responsible. There was a full investigation that was done, and her name was cleared of any wrongdoing. She was deemed not responsible, but that's the story that spread, much like those fires. So what did happen? We don't know. Yeah, still to this day, there is no conclusion officially of how the fire started. Now, we can piece together a few things. According to Catherine, on the evening of October 8th, 1871, she was asleep in bed, and she wakes up around 9 o'clock p.m. to see those fires outside. And she notices that the fires are spreading quickly and reports those fires, but they're spreading quickly because of the conditions in Chicago. Dry weather, intense winds, and the winds push the fire to this branch of the river. The river itself, polluted, right? So along the top of the river is a thick layer of grease and oil. That all catches fire and it jumps across. The fires spread into a city made almost entirely of wooden buildings. And so that all burns to the ground. Over the course of 2.5 days, those fires raged on non-stop. It was not finally until we got some relief from the rain that we saw what we were left with. When it was all said and done, about 18,000 buildings had burned to the ground. It was about 3.5 square miles worth of land affected, and 1 out of every 3 people was left homeless. It was a massive tragedy, unlike anything Chicago had ever seen before. But I think it's important to acknowledge the beauty that can come out of any tragedy, because after that fire, we had no choice but to wipe it all away and build it all again from scratch. But this time, we learned from our mistakes, right? So you saw a lot of new architects make their way here, begin to experiment with different styles, with different, more fireproof materials. And so that fire ultimately leads us to the city that is just behind us here today. So we can appreciate the beauty that came out of that tragedy. But that's still sad. So we're going to move along to our second story. And this one's more fun, has to do with that World's Fair. Now, the World's Fair took place in 1893. It was a massive deal for Chicago to be able to get the rights to host this World's Fair. And I say that because Chicago was not really taken seriously. We were mainly just viewed as a city of production and industry, but we wanted to be viewed as capable of more than that. And so we had to do our work. Now, the World's Fair took place in Jackson Park on the south side of Chicago. It was completely transformed, largely thanks to 2 lead architects, John Root and Daniel Burnham. And it got turned into this beautiful, magnificent campus with all these Beaux-Arts structures, heavily influenced by Greek and Roman architecture. The main color, of course, was that brilliant white or cream color. And so it led a lot of people to just call the World's Fair campus the West City for that reason. Now, people started to come here, and they were not only amazed by the architecture itself, but all these new things to enhance the experience. You see, part of the reason why we light up the Wrigley Building in the way that we do in the evenings is because that's the same way that we lit up those buildings at the fair with the reveal of the incandescent light bulb. It was the first time people around the world were experiencing it for themselves, and it is said that they would walk around the World's Fair campus at night and weep at the sight of the light bulbs. To them, it was like magic. It was also the reveal of these new things like adding sweet syrups to carbonated water, soda, pop, whatever you want to call it, we have today. Also the reveal of things like the hamburger and Cracker Jacks and the original brownie recipe. It was also the reveal of, I should say this, it was declared that PBR, Pabst Blue Ribbon beer, was the best beer in the world at that World's Fair. So, I don't know, do with that information what you will. Absolutely. Stop on by a local pub, grab a PBR. And then also new inventions were being shown off. They had all these different shows and exhibits. They say, stop on by, check this out, this new technology. It's called the zipper. Ooh, you can add it to your clothes. Incredible. Hey, stop on by, you can experience the form of movement on a screen. Yeah, like a rapid slideshow of movies in their very early form, shown off for the first time. Stop on by, you can take a ride on the world's first Ferris wheel. Yeah, that Ferris wheel was the main focal point of this campus, and the idea came around because we were looking for a way to compete with the Eiffel Tower in Paris from the World's Fairs that came before ours.
We went in this
You've
building
never seen the World's
yesterday, that
Fair
tall
in,
building.
or the
We went
Eiffel
in there
Tower in Paris
yesterday
before.
and did the
You know, that's
stunt
quite a
there.
lot
We
to
was
live up to, and
over
so we had to go big.
1,300 feet
The
in
World's
the
Fair
air.
Ferris wheel was about 70 feet
Standing on
taller than the
glass.
Centennial
Well, I'm gonna
Ferris wheel that we now have
come
at
back to
Navy
y'all.
Pier. It was primarily a wood and steel